Today, we are cracking open one of the most important resources in all of modern biology. It's called the Gene Expression Omnibus, or GEO for short. The best way to think about it? It's like a massive public library, but instead of books, it's packed with the raw data of our genetic code. Let's dive right in.
But first, to really get why GEO is such a big deal, we have to understand the problem it was built to solve. You see, modern science, and biology in particular, is just swimming in data. Every single experiment generates a tidal wave of information, and that leads to a really important question.
For a long time, the answer was, well, not a whole lot. The data behind a published paper, it would usually just end up sitting on some hard drive in a lab, basically lost to the rest of the world. These became known as data graveyards, and they were such a huge waste of potential knowledge. And the scale of this problem is just mind-boggling.
To give you some perspective, the processed data that GEO holds right now is over 200 terabytes. And that's not even counting the raw files, which are thousands of times larger. It's an absolute flood of information, and without a system, it would be completely useless.
And that's where GEO comes in. It was created by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, the NCBI, to be the answer to this data graveyard problem. It's a single, public place for all of this vital information to live.
So at its heart, GEO is a library. It's public, it's free, and it's international. It takes all this complex genomics data, stuff that tells us what our genes are doing and when, and makes it available to literally anyone with a computer. And the size of its collection is just, well, it's staggering.
For starters, GEO holds the data from over 200,000 different studies. Every one of those is a unique experiment, a potential key to unlocking a new discovery. And those studies, they're made up of more than 6.5 million individual biological samples. Think about that. Every single one of those tells a story, whether it's from a single cell or an entire organ.
But what's really incredible is the diversity here. This isn't just about humans. This data comes from over 6,000 different organisms, covering pretty much all branches of life. It's a library for the entire planet, and it's a library that's constantly changing, right alongside technology.
I mean, just look at this. A decade ago, most of the data came from an older technology called microarrays. But fast forward to today, and a whopping 85% of new data comes from next-generation sequencing, or NGS. GEO is like a perfect mirror, reflecting how fast science is moving forward.
Okay, so with millions and millions of data points, how on earth do you find anything? Well, like any good library, GEO has a brilliant cataloging system. Let's break down how it all fits together.
It's all built in these neat layers. So you start with the platform, that's the machine, the technology they used. That platform analyzes a sample, which is the actual bit of biology. A bunch of related samples gets bundled into a series, that's the whole experiment. And finally, some of these get organized into a dataset, which is a perfectly curated collection ready for analysis. It's this structure that makes the whole thing work.
All right, let's make this a little more real. Let's say you're a scientist. How would you actually use this thing? We're going to follow a researcher on a quest to answer a very specific question. So, this is the goal. Our scientist needs data on melanoma. They need it from mice, and, this is key, they need it to come from a specific type of machine so they can compare apples to apples. Now that sounds super specific, right? But with GEO, it's actually pretty straightforward.
And here's why. GEO has this incredibly powerful search. You don't just type in melanoma. You build a precise query. You can tell it the exact organism, search for keywords only in the title, and even hunt for a specific platform using its unique ID. It's like being a data detective.
So our researcher builds their query, and boom, they find the exact dataset they need. From there, they can start comparing things, like normal mice versus mice that have a specific gene turned off. And by doing that, they can see how a single gene, let's call it DURL1, acts differently, which gives them huge clues about its role in melanoma. A discovery that was only possible because someone else shared their data. And this right here brings us to the most powerful idea behind GEO. The value of the data isn't just in that first study. The real magic is what happens next, when thousands of other scientists get to use it. This is what we call data reuse. The original team published their paper, sure, but the data itself gets a second, third, 100th life. Other researchers can come in, ask totally new questions, combine it with other data, and find things the original scientists never even dreamed of. It just multiplies the value of that research over and over again. And there is no better example of this than the COVID-19 pandemic.
The very first big data set on how the virus affects our genes was put on GEO in March 2020. That was months before the paper was officially published, giving scientists everywhere a massive head start. And today, that one data set has been used in over 93 new scientific papers. That is science moving at the speed of a crisis.
The discoveries that come from reusing this data are just wild. Scientists are digging through old data sets and finding new ways to spot cancer earlier. They're finding that a drug for one disease might actually work on something completely different. This data is even being used to train AI models to predict diseases. It's just an explosion of discovery, all powered by shared knowledge.
So what's the bottom line here? GEO isn't just some dusty old archive. It's a living, breathing thing that gets more powerful and more valuable every single day.
The main thing to remember is this: GEO is a catalyst. It's the perfect example of what we call the fair data principles. It makes data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And by doing that, it doesn't just store information, it actively pushes science forward for the entire world.
And that's the most exciting part. This incredible library is open to all of us. It's a public treasure chest, full of clues to understanding our health, disease, and the very blueprint of life. It's growing every single day. The only real limit is the questions we have the courage to ask. Thanks for joining me.